The massive crystal dome stretched high above the meeting hall. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in their special seats. Each species had their own section. The air hummed with strange sounds, clicking, buzzing, and musical tones that served as different alien languages. Ambassador Dae-ho Kim sat in the human section. It was called the probationary table by the other species. This table sat lower than all the others. It was painted a dull gray color while the other tables shone with bright metals and precious stones. The message was clear. Humans were not welcome as equals here. Dae-ho looked around the room. He had been coming to these meetings for 3 years now. 3 long years of listening to aliens talk about how humans were too stupid, too weak, and too primitive to join their club. He wore his best diplomatic suit, but it felt cheap compared to the flowing robes and energy fields that other ambassadors wore. Next to him sat Hannah Park, Earth's top expert on alien life. She was young but brilliant. Her tablet showed charts and graphs about human achievements. None of the aliens cared to look at them. They had already decided that humans had nothing to offer. Jun Lee sat on Dae-ho's other side. He was a military officer, but he wore civilian clothes to these meetings. The aliens did not like to be reminded that humans had weapons. They preferred to think of humans as harmless children who played with fire. The Vrexian chancellor stood up to speak. The Vrexians looked like giant spiders made of metal. Their leader spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding gears. The translation device in Dae-ho's ear turned the sounds into words. "We gather today to discuss the human problem," the chancellor said. "These creatures have been under our watch for 3 standard years. In this time, they have shown no real progress. They still fight among themselves. They still destroy their own planet. They still believe they can understand the universe with their simple minds." Murmurs of agreement came from around the room. The Zephyrians, who looked like clouds of glowing gas, pulsed brighter. The ancient Karathi, tall beings made of living stone, nodded their massive heads. The energy-based luminans flickered in patterns that meant yes in their language. Hannah Park squeezed her hands into fists. She had spent months preparing a presentation about human science. She wanted to show how humans had split the atom, traveled to space, and built computers that could think. But every time she asked to speak, the alien said no. Dr. Yunji Choi sat behind the main human delegation. She was Earth's greatest physicist. She had discovered new ways to bend space and time. But when she tried to share her work, the aliens laughed. They said human science was like children playing with toys. "The humans claim they have mastered nuclear energy," continued the Vrexian chancellor. "Yet they used this power to make weapons. They claim they can travel through space, yet they have barely left their own solar system. They claim they understand physics, yet they cannot even make their flying machines work without burning fossil fuels." More sounds of agreement filled the chamber. A being that looked like a walking tree raised one of its branch arms. "The humans are a violent species," it said in a voice like rustling leaves. "They have wars every few years. They kill each other over resources, land, and ideas. How can we trust such creatures with advanced technology?" Dae-ho wanted to stand up and defend his species. He wanted to point out that many alien races had also fought wars. He wanted to remind them that humans had also created art, music, and literature that moved the soul. But he knew it would not matter. The aliens had made up their minds long ago. Captain Minho Seo sat in the back row of the human section. He was officially listed as a cultural attaché, but everyone knew he was really there to watch for threats. His job was to keep the human delegation safe. He had been getting strange reports from Earth for the past few weeks. Something big was happening, but the reports were coded in ways he could barely understand. The Karathi elder stood up next. When these ancient beings spoke, the entire chamber fell silent. They were millions of years old and were supposed to be the wisest creatures in the galaxy. "We have tried to guide the humans," the elder said in a voice like distant thunder. "We have offered them knowledge. We have shown them the proper way to organize a society. Yet they resist. They insist on doing things their own way. This is not wisdom. This is the stubbornness of children. Dr. So Young Han sat next to Dr. Choi. She was another human scientist, but she specialized in studying consciousness and the mind. She had been very quiet during these meetings, but Daeho noticed that she always seemed to be listening very carefully. She took notes on everything the aliens said, especially when they talked about human limitations. The meeting continued for hours. Each alien species took turns explaining why humans were not ready to join the galactic community. They talked about human emotions as if they were a disease. They discussed human creativity as if it were a form of mental illness. They described human unpredictability as if it were a dangerous flaw. Humans change their minds too often, said a Luminar representative. Its voice sounded like singing crystals. They do not follow logical patterns. They make decisions based on feelings instead of facts. They cannot be trusted to maintain stable policies. Human art makes no sense, added a Zephyrian speaker. They create things that serve no practical purpose. They waste time and resources on music, paintings, and stories. Efficient species do not engage in such pointless activities. Jun Lee felt his jaw tighten. These aliens had never seen a human symphony orchestra. They had never read human poetry or looked at human paintings. They judged humanity based on their own narrow ideas of what intelligence should look like. As the day wore on, Daeho noticed that more and more humans were getting messages on their personal devices. Dr. Choi kept checking her tablet. Captain, CO answered several calls. Even Hana Park received urgent communications from Earth. The final speaker of the day was a representative from the Collective Council. This was the governing body that made decisions for the entire galaxy. The representative was a being that looked like a shifting geometric pattern. After careful consideration, the representative announced, "We have decided that humanity requires additional supervision. Effective immediately, all human activities will be monitored by appointed galactic supervisors. Humans will be relocated to a designated sector where they can be properly guided toward civilization." The chamber erupted in approving sounds from the alien delegates, but the human section had gone completely silent. Daeho felt something cold settle in his stomach. They were not just being rejected, they were being put in a cage. Dr. So Young Han stood up slowly. For the first time in 3 years, she asked for permission to speak. The chamber gradually quieted down, curious about what the human had to say. "You call us primitive," she said in a clear, calm voice. "You say we need supervision. You treat us like dangerous children." She paused and looked around the massive chamber. "Perhaps it is time you learned what happens when you underestimate children who have been playing with fire." The silence in the chamber lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like hours. Then the alien delegates began making their sounds of amusement. Clicking, buzzing, and harmonic vibrations filled the air. They thought Dr. So Young Han was making an empty threat. Ambassador Daeho Kim felt his face burn with shame and anger. 3 years of patient diplomacy had led to this moment, being laughed at by creatures who thought humans were nothing more than clever animals. He looked down at his hands and noticed they were shaking slightly. The Vrexian chancellor made a sound like metal scraping against stone. The translation device turned it into laughter. "The human makes jokes," the chancellor said. "Perhaps this is another example of their unpredictable nature. They threaten us with fire while sitting in our chamber, surrounded by our technology, protected by our laws." Captain Minho Seo's personal communicator buzzed again. This was the 5th message in the last hour. All of them were marked with the highest security codes. He glanced at the latest message and his eyes widened. His face went pale as he read the words on the small screen. Minho leaned over to whisper in Daeho's ear, "Ambassador, we need to leave. Right now." Daeho turned to look at the military officer. Minho's expression was deadly serious. Around them, other members of the human delegation were also receiving urgent messages. Dr. Yoonji Choi was staring at her tablet with a mixture of excitement and fear. Hana Park had gone very still, reading something on her device. But the aliens were not finished with their speeches. The Karathi elder stood up again, his massive stone form towering over the other delegates. When he spoke, His voice carried the weight of millions of years. "The humans will be placed under the protection of the guidance protocol," the elder announced. "This is for their own benefit. They will be moved to Sector 7G, where they can develop at their own pace without interfering with galactic civilization. Volunteer species will help teach them proper behavior." The Luminar representative added its singing voice to the discussion. "The human homeworld will be preserved as a nature reserve. Their cities will be studied as examples of primitive urban development. The humans themselves will be relocated to prepared habitats where they can live safely." Deho felt something break inside his chest. They were not just being dismissed from the galactic community. They were being turned into pets. Zoo animals to be studied and managed by their alien masters. Dr. So Young Han was still standing. She had not moved since making her statement about fire. Now she spoke again, her voice carrying clearly across the vast chamber. "You speak of guidance and protection," she said. "You talk about teaching us proper behavior, but you have never asked what we might teach you." The Zephyrian collective pulsed with patterns that meant amusement. "What could humans possibly teach us?" their speaker asked. "You are barely 300 years out of your agricultural period. We have been traveling between stars for millions of years. You could teach us how to waste resources," suggested another alien voice, "or how to make war over imaginary concepts like honor and freedom." More sounds of alien laughter filled the chamber. But Dr. Han smiled, and there was something cold in that smile that made Deho's skin crawl. "You think you know everything about us," she said. "You have studied our history, our culture, our technology. You believe you understand human nature. But you have made one critical error." The laughter began to fade. Something in her tone was making the aliens uncomfortable. "You assume that what you see is all there is," Dr. Han continued. "You think that because our ships use chemical rockets, we do not understand better propulsion. You believe that because our weapons use explosives, we have not discovered more elegant methods of destruction. You imagine that because our computers use silicon chips, we have not learned to think in ways that would break your understanding of consciousness itself." Captain Minho stood up and moved to Deho's side. "Sir, I have direct orders from Earth Command. We need to evacuate the delegation immediately." Around them, the other humans were quietly gathering their belongings. Dr. Choi closed her tablet and slipped it into her bag. Hana Park stood up and smoothed down her skirt. Jun Lee checked his watch and nodded to the others. The alien delegates were starting to notice the movement in the human section. The Vrexian Chancellor pointed one of his metal appendages at the humans. "You will remain seated until this session is concluded," he commanded. "The guidance protocol requires your immediate compliance." Dr. So Young Han laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Compliance?" she repeated. "You want our compliance? After 3 years of treating us like mentally disabled children? After deciding our fate without asking our opinion?" She began walking toward the exit. The other humans fell in step behind her. Deho found himself moving with them, though he had not consciously decided to leave. "Stop," the Karathi elder boomed. "You cannot simply walk away from the council's decision. This is unprecedented." Dr. Han paused at the chamber's main door. She turned back to look at the thousands of alien delegates. "Unprecedented?" she asked. "You clearly do not understand humans very well." The chamber erupted in chaos. Alien voices rose in anger, confusion, and alarm. Security forces began moving toward the exits, but they were not sure what they were supposed to do. No species had ever walked out of a council session before. Deho pulled out his diplomatic credentials and placed them on the nearest surface. The small plastic card that had taken him 3 years to earn seemed worthless now. "Earth formally withdraws from these proceedings," he announced, "permanently." The other humans followed his example. One by one, they placed their council identification on tables and chairs as they walked toward the door. Dr. Choi left behind her research notes. Hana Park abandoned her biological samples. Captain Minho dropped his security badge. "You cannot do this," the Vrexian Chancellor screamed. "The Council will not allow such behavior." "The Council," said Dr. Han as she reached the exit, "no longer has any authority over humanity." The 15-member human delegation walked out of the chamber, in perfect formation. Behind them, the sounds of alien panic grew louder. Emergency alarms began ringing. Security forces ran in circles, unsure of how to handle a situation that had never happened before in galactic history. As they walked through the corridors of the council building, Deho realized that his hands had stopped shaking. For the first time in 3 years, he felt truly calm. Whatever was happening on Earth, whatever those coded messages meant, he knew that humanity was done begging for acceptance. Captain Minho spoke into his communicator as they walked. "Command, this is Sio. The delegation has withdrawn from council proceedings. We are proceeding to the extraction point." The voice that answered was filled with excitement. "Confirmed, Captain. Operation Chaos begins in T-6 hours. Make sure our people are clear of the station." Dr. Han smiled as they reached their shuttle bay. "The galaxy wanted to see what primitive humans could do," she said. "I think it's time we showed them." Behind them, the crystal dome of the council chamber pulsed with emergency lights. The greatest political body in galactic history was experiencing its first constitutional crisis, and somewhere in the depths of space, humanity was about to remind the universe why predators should never corner their prey. 2 weeks had passed since the humans walked out of the Galactic Council. The massive crystal chamber felt different now. Empty seats at the probationary table served as a constant reminder of the unprecedented event. Chancellor Vorth of the Vrexians called meeting after meeting, demanding action. "The humans must be brought back," Vorth declared, his metal legs clicking against the floor. "They cannot simply ignore the Council's authority. If we allow this behavior, other species might follow their example." The Karathi elder shifted his massive stone body. "Perhaps we acted too hastily. The humans showed spirit in their departure. This could indicate they have more potential than we first believed." "Spirit?" Vorth's voice rose to a grinding screech. "They showed disrespect. They abandoned their responsibilities. They must be taught proper behavior through force if necessary." Around the chamber, other alien delegates voiced their own opinions. The Zephyrians pulsed with patterns of concern. The Luminans flickered with uncertainty. For thousands of years, every species had eventually accepted the Council's wisdom. The humans were the first to simply say no and walk away. Meanwhile, in the depths of the Sol system, something incredible was taking place. Admiral Kyungsoo Park stood on the bridge of a ship that should not have existed. The vessel was called the Defiance, and it represented 10 years of secret human development. The bridge looked nothing like the cramped, button-filled control rooms of earlier human spacecraft. Instead, it resembled a garden. Living walls grew around workstations where crew members sat in comfortable chairs. The ceiling showed a perfect view of the stars, but Admiral Park knew they were actually traveling through folded space. "Status report," Admiral Park requested. Chief Engineer Woojin Kim looked up from his station. His workplace was surrounded by plants that seemed to respond to his touch. "All systems are functioning perfectly, sir. The consciousness drive is operating at 97% efficiency." Admiral Park nodded. The consciousness drive was Dr. Yoon Ji Choi's greatest discovery. She had learned that human minds could actually change the laws of physics through focused thought and quantum observation. What the aliens called humanity's chaotic thinking was actually their greatest weapon. Navigator Ji Hai's song raised her hand from her flower-covered workstation. "Sir, we have successfully completed 17-dimensional jumps. The alien scouts still show no sign of detecting our movement." This was the key to humanity's new strategy. While the aliens had mastered traveling through normal space very quickly, they had never learned to move between dimensions. They thought it was impossible. Human minds, however, refused to accept that anything was truly impossible. Communications. Officer Sung Min Bae was monitoring alien transmissions from across the galaxy. His equipment looked more like a musical instrument than a radio. As he touched different flower petals, voices from distant worlds filled the air. "Admiral, you need to hear this," Sung Min said. "The Vrexians have sent 3 scout fleets toward Earth. They launched 6 days ago. Admiral Park smiled. And where are those fleets now? That's the interesting part, sir. They seem to have disappeared. No distress signals. No wreckage. Nothing. It's like they simply vanished somewhere near Jupiter. On Europa base, orbiting Jupiter, sensor specialist Hyejin Kang was watching the same mystery unfold. Her monitoring station was built inside Europa's ice, but the walls showed perfect views of space around Jupiter. She had been tracking the alien ships as they approached the outer planets. Director, "Oh, you need to see this," she called to her supervisor. Director Tae-hyun. Oh floated over to her station. The low gravity inside Europa made movement graceful and easy. "What do you have, Hyejin?" 3 separate alien fleets, different species, all heading for Earth. They all disappeared at the same location, about 2 million kilometers from Jupiter. But here's the strange part. They weren't destroyed. According to my readings, they were relocated. Director O frowned. Relocated where? I don't know. Somewhere that doesn't exist in normal space. Dr. Young-Soo Nam was working in a laboratory that existed in 17 different dimensions at the same time. He had discovered that human consciousness could create new pockets of reality simply by believing they should exist. The missing alien fleets were currently in one of these pocket dimensions. "How are our guests doing?" asked researcher HFY Yu as she entered the lab. Dr. Nam gestured to a viewing screen that showed the interior of what looked like a comfortable space station. Alien beings from 3 different species were sitting in lecture halls, watching presentations about human history and culture. "They're learning," Dr. Nam replied. "Professor In-soo Ryu is teaching them about human art. Dr. Mi-young Lee is explaining human philosophy. Captain Bok-ja Lee is showing them recordings of human music." The aliens in the pocket dimension were not prisoners. They were students. They had been placed in a learning environment where they could understand what humanity really was. The Rexians were discovering that humans created beauty for its own sake. The Zephyrians were learning about human concepts of individual identity. The Karathi were being introduced to the idea that wisdom could come from youth as well as age. "Are they angry about being kidnapped?" HFY asked. Dr. Nam shook his head. "Not anymore. The initial shock wore off when they realized they weren't in danger. Now they're actually curious. Apparently no one has ever tried to educate them before. They've spent so long being the teachers that they forgot what it felt like to learn." Back in the Galactic Council chambers, emergency sessions were being called every day. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Human ships were being spotted near major star systems. But these ships looked nothing like the primitive chemical rockets the aliens expected. The human vessels seemed to be made of living metal that flowed like water. They moved without any visible propulsion systems. They appeared and disappeared without using any known form of faster-than-light travel. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to ignore several fundamental laws of physics. "How is this possible?" demanded a Luminar representative. "Our scientists studied human technology for years. They barely understand nuclear fusion." The Karathi elder was beginning to suspect the truth. Perhaps we only saw what the humans wanted us to see. Perhaps they were hiding their true capabilities. "Chancellor, Vorth refused to accept this possibility. Impossible. Our sensors are perfect. Our intelligence gathering is flawless. Humans cannot have developed this technology without our knowledge." But the evidence was growing stronger every day. Human ships were taking control of hyperspace routes throughout the galaxy. They weren't attacking anyone or destroying anything. They were simply positioning themselves at key locations and waiting. Dr. Hyun-A Kim was studying the psychology of alien species from her research station on Mars. She had spent years analyzing how different alien minds worked. Her conclusions were disturbing. "The galaxy's species have been stagnant for millions of years," she explained to her research team. "They follow the same patterns, think the same thoughts, make the same assumptions. They've become so comfortable with their superiority that they stopped growing." "What does that mean for us?" asked her assistant. "It means we've been evolving while they've been standing still. They think our chaotic nature is a weakness, but it's actually the key to adaptation. We change, we grow, we become something new. They just repeat what they've always done." On Earth, Final preparations were being made for the next phase of humanity's plan. Dr. So Young Han stood in a command center that looked more like a garden than a military facility. Screens showing star maps grew on the walls like flowers. Control systems responded to thought as much as touch. Status report on Operation Enlightenment, she requested. All human vessels are in position, reported Fleet Admiral Sujin Han, Dr. So Young's sister. We now control 70% of the galaxy's major hyperspace junctions. The aliens can't move between star systems without our permission. Dr. So Young smiled. And they still don't understand how we're doing it. Should we be worried about military retaliation? Asked Admiral Sujin. From whom? Dr. So Young replied. Half their scout fleets are in our education centers. The rest are too confused to mount an attack. Besides, we're not their enemies. We're their teachers. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons. It was their refusal to accept that the universe had limitations. While other species learned the rules and followed them, humans learned the rules and then found ways to change them. The silence before the storm was ending. Soon the Galactic Council would realize that they had not been dealing with a primitive species seeking acceptance. They had been negotiating with the next stage of galactic evolution. The truth hit the galaxy like a wave of cold water. The Luminan Collective, beings of pure energy who considered themselves the most intelligent species in existence, had sent their greatest exploratory fleet toward the Sol system. 200 ships made of crystallized light, each one carrying the consciousness of 1,000 Luminar individuals. They never reached Earth. Sensor specialist He Jin Kang watched from Europa Base as the entire Luminan fleet simply vanished near Jupiter. One moment they were there, their crystal ships gleaming in the reflected sunlight. The next moment, empty space. Director O, she called urgently. The Luminan fleet just disappeared. Director Taehyun. O rushed to her station. His face went pale as he looked at the sensor readings. Any debris, any energy signatures? Nothing, Heejin replied. It's like they were erased from reality, but wait. She adjusted her controls, scanning different energy frequencies. There's something strange. I'm detecting a dimensional echo. They're not destroyed. They're somewhere else. The somewhere else was Dr. Young-Soo Nam's newest creation. He had learned to fold space-time like origami, creating pocket dimensions that existed between the normal universe and pure imagination. The Luminan fleet now floated in a space that looked like the inside of a vast library. How are our energy-based friends adapting? Asked researcher HIU as she joined Dr. Nam in his multidimensional laboratory. Dr. Nam gestured to a viewing portal that showed the Luminar beings exploring their new environment. The crystal ships had been converted into comfortable spaces, where the energy beings could exist safely. Human teachers moved among them, sharing knowledge that the Luminars had never imagined. They're fascinated, Dr. Nam reported. Professor Insu Ryu is teaching them about human emotions. They've never experienced feelings like joy, sadness, or wonder. They thought consciousness was just pure logic. And they're not angry about being relocated? Initially, yes, but Captain Bakjali explained that they're not prisoners, they're students. We're showing them aspects of existence they never knew were possible. The impact of the Luminan fleet's disappearance sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. The Luminars were supposed to be untouchable. Their ships existed partially outside normal space. Their technology was millions of years ahead of anything other species possessed. Chancellor Vorth called an emergency meeting. His metal form sparked, with electrical discharges that showed his agitation. This is impossible, he declared. The Luminars cannot simply vanish. Their technology is beyond anything the humans could counter. The Karathi elder was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his ancient voice carried a note of wonder. Perhaps that is our problem. We have been thinking about this wrong. We assumed the humans would try to match our technology. Instead, they appear to have created something entirely new. New? Demanded a Zephyrian representative. There is nothing new under the stars. Every possible technology has been discovered. Every scientific principle has been explored. But even as the aliens argued, more reports were coming in. Human ships were appearing throughout the galaxy, but they defied every law of physics the aliens knew. The vessels seemed to be made of living metal that could change shape at will. They moved without any visible propulsion. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Captain Bakja Lee commanded the exploration vessel Horizon as it made contact with the relocated alien fleets. Her ship looked like a giant flower floating through space, its petals opening and closing to reveal different sections. Inside, the captured aliens were learning things that challenged their basic understanding of reality. Captain's log, she recorded. Day 15 of the education program. The Vrexian delegation has begun to understand human concepts of art and beauty. Yesterday, one of their warriors asked if he could learn to paint. The Zephyrian collective is struggling with the idea of individual identity, but several members have expressed curiosity about human poetry. The education program was not cruel or harsh. The aliens were treated as honored guests. They had comfortable quarters, excellent food, and access to human knowledge that had been hidden from the galaxy. But the most shocking thing for them was discovering that humans actually wanted to teach, not conquer. "Why are you doing this?" asked a Luminar being during one of Professor Insu Ryu's lectures. "You could have destroyed us. You could have taken our technology. Why are you teaching us instead?" Professor Ryu smiled. "Because that's what intelligent species do. They share knowledge. They help each other grow. They try to make the universe a better place for everyone." The Luminar being flickered with patterns that meant confusion. "But we treated you badly. We called you primitive. We tried to put you in cages." "Yes," Professor Ryu agreed. "But that doesn't mean we have to treat you the same way. Humans believe in something called forgiveness. We also believe in second chances." Back in the Galactic Council chambers, the atmosphere was growing desperate. 3 more species had sent fleets toward human space. All of them had vanished without a trace. The Council was facing something they had never encountered before, a problem they could not solve with their traditional methods. "We must negotiate," suggested the Karathi elder. "Perhaps the humans will listen to reason." Chancellor Vorth's form sparked even brighter. "Negotiate? With primitives who steal our fleets? We should send the entire galactic armada. We should turn their homeworld into space dust." "With what ships?" asked a practical Zephyrian. "Half our vessels are missing. The other half are afraid to leave their home systems. And from the reports we're receiving, human ships now control every major hyperspace route in the galaxy." This was true. Fleet Admiral Sujin Han commanded a fleet of vessels that existed partially outside normal space-time. Her flagship, the Sovereignty, could appear anywhere in the galaxy instantly. Her ships controlled the ancient hyperspace networks that connected all the major star systems. "Admiral," reported Tactical Officer Gunwoo Park, "we now have complete control of galactic transportation. No alien vessel can travel between star systems without our permission." Admiral Sujin nodded. "Any signs of military buildup?" "Negative, ma'am. Most alien governments are too confused to organize a response. They're still trying to figure out how we're doing any of this." The secret was something the aliens had never considered. Dr. Hyun-A Kim had spent years studying alien psychology from her research base on Mars. Her conclusions had shaped humanity's entire strategy. "The galaxy's species have been following the same patterns for millions of years," she explained to her research team. "They discovered the basic laws of physics and assumed those laws could never be changed. They found ways to travel faster than light and decided that was the ultimate achievement. They built their civilizations and stopped growing." "So what makes humans different?" asked her research assistant. "We never accept that anything is impossible. When we find a law of physics, we look for ways to bend it. When we discover a limitation, we find ways around it. The aliens think reality is fixed. We think reality is negotiable." This was the key to humanity's revolution. While other species had learned to work within the laws of the universe, humans had learned to change those laws. Dr. Yoonji Choi's breakthrough in consciousness research had shown that reality itself could be altered by focused thought and will. The aliens had superior technology, but they were limited by their belief in limitations. Humans had inferior technology, but they refused to accept that superiority was permanent. This refusal to give up had led them to discoveries that violated everything the galaxy thought it knew about science. Dr. So Young Han stood in Earth's primary command center watching as reports came in from across the galaxy. Human vessels were in position around every major alien homeworld. Not threatening, not attacking, just present. A constant reminder that the balance of power had shifted. Status. Report, she requested. All objectives achieved, reported her sister, Admiral Sujin. We control galactic transportation. We have relocated hostile fleets to education centers. Most importantly, we have demonstrated that human technology is beyond anything the aliens can understand or counter. Any response from the Council? They're calling for emergency negotiations. Chancellor Vorth is demanding our surrender, but the other species are starting to realize that surrender might not be an option for them anymore. Dr. So Young smiled. Then it's time for the final phase. Open a communication channel to the Galactic Council. Let's show them what humans really are. The message that reached the council chambers was unlike anything they had ever received. It came through communication systems that shouldn't have been able to reach them. It appeared on screens that weren't connected to any network. Most disturbing of all, it seemed to bypass their translation devices and speak directly to their minds. Greetings, Galactic Council, said Dr. So Young Han's voice. We are the species you called primitive. We are the creatures you wanted to cage. We are the children you thought were playing with fire. We have a message for you. Class is now in session. The Galactic Council chamber had never experienced such silence. Dr. So Young Han's message echoed in the minds of every delegate, bypassing their translation devices and speaking directly to their consciousness. The crystal dome above them flickered, with patterns of light that seemed to respond to human thought. Chancellor Vorth tried to maintain his authority, but his metal form was trembling. This is impossible. Humans cannot access our communication systems. They do not have the technology. Perhaps, said the Karathi elder slowly, we need to reconsider what we think we know about human technology. As if summoned by his words, the space above the council chamber began to shimmer. Reality itself seemed to bend and fold, and then a massive ship materialized directly above the crystal dome. The vessel was beautiful and terrible, shaped like a living flower made of metal and energy. It should not have been able to exist in the same space as the station, but there it was. Inside the ship, Fleet Admiral Sujin Han stood on a bridge that looked more like a garden than a military command center. Plants grew around workstations, where human officers managed systems that violated every known law of physics. The walls were transparent, giving a perfect view of the council station below. Open a channel, Admiral Sujin commanded. Her image appeared in the council chamber, projected by technology that the aliens could not understand. She wore a simple uniform, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who held all the cards in a game the other players didn't even know they were playing. I am Fleet Admiral Sujin Han of the Terran Defense Force, she announced. On behalf of humanity, I bring you greetings and a proposal. Chancellor Vorth found his voice. You dare threaten the Galactic Council? You dare bring weapons into our sacred chamber? Admiral Sujin smiled. Weapons? Chancellor, if we wanted to threaten you, you would already know it. This is not a threat. This is a demonstration. Around the galaxy, reports were flooding into the Council. Human ships were appearing at the edge of every major star system. Hundreds of vessels that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They made no aggressive moves, but their mere presence was more intimidating than any weapon. Tactical Officer Gunwoo Park reported from his station surrounded by flowering vines. Admiral, all human vessels are in position. We now have complete control of galactic space. No alien ship can move without our permission. The aliens in the council chamber heard every word. Their own communication systems had been completely bypassed. The humans were demonstrating total technological superiority without firing a single shot. This is madness, declared a Zephyrian representative. 3 weeks ago you were begging for membership in our council. Now you claim to control the entire galaxy? We were never begging, Dr. So Young Han's voice replied from everywhere and nowhere. We were observing, learning, waiting for the right moment to show you who we really are. The Luminar representative flickered with patterns of confusion. But our intelligence reports, our scientific analysis, you were primitive. Your technology was thousands of years behind ours. Your intelligence reports showed you what we wanted you to see, Admiral Sujin explained patiently. You studied our chemical rockets and missed our dimensional drives. You analyzed our nuclear weapons and overlooked our reality modification systems. You measured our computational power and ignored our consciousness manipulation technology. Dr. Hyun-A Kim's research had been crucial to this deception. She had studied alien psychology and discovered that they only saw what they expected to see. The galaxy's species had been so convinced of their own superiority that they never looked deeper than the surface of human technology. Chancellor Vorth's form sparked with desperate energy. Even if this is true, even if you have hidden technology, you are still just one species. We are thousands. The combined might of the galaxy will crush you. With what ships? Admiral Sujin asked gently. Half your fleets are currently in our educational programs. The other half are afraid to leave their home systems. And those that do try to move. She gestured to her tactical officer. Gunwoo Park touched a flower petal on his control panel. Throughout the galaxy, alien vessels that had been attempting to organize military responses simply vanished. Not destroyed, relocated to pocket dimensions where they could learn about humanity without causing trouble. Your fleets are safe, Admiral Sujin assured the terrified aliens. They are being educated about human culture, history, and philosophy. Some of them are quite enjoying the experience. This was true. In the dimensional pockets created by Dr. Young-Soo Nam, alien crews were discovering aspects of existence they had never imagined. Vrexian warriors were learning about human art. Zephyrian collectives were exploring the concept of individual identity. Luminar beings were experiencing emotions for the first time. Why? Asked the Karathi elder. His ancient voice carried genuine curiosity. Why educate us instead of destroying us? You have the power to eliminate us all. Dr. So Young Han materialized, in the chamber herself, her form shimmering as she stepped through dimensional barriers. She looked exactly as she had 3 weeks ago when she walked out of the council, but now the aliens could sense the vast power she carried. Because destruction is easy, she replied. Any species can learn to destroy. It takes wisdom to create, to teach, to help others grow. Humanity chose the harder path. But we treated you badly, whispered a delegate from a species that looked like walking crystals. We called you primitive. We tried to put you in cages. Yes, Dr. So Young agreed. You did. But that doesn't mean we have to be like you. Humans believe in something called growth. We believe people can change, can become better than they were. Chancellor. Forth made a desperate attempt to maintain control. You speak of peace, but you hold weapons to our throats. You control our transportation. You steal our ships. We control your transportation to prevent unnecessary conflicts, Dr. So Young corrected. We relocate your ships to prevent them from being used for violence, and we do all of this to give you time to learn. Learn what? Demanded the Chancellor. That the universe is bigger than you imagined, that intelligence takes many forms, that a species you called primitive has been quietly surpassing you for decades. Dr. So Young gestured, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. The displays showed human achievements that had been hidden from galactic view. Cities that existed in multiple dimensions. Art that could change reality through beauty alone. Music that could heal minds across species barriers. Technology that treated consciousness itself as a building material. For millions of years, the galaxy has been stagnant. Dr. So Young continued. You found comfort in your superiority and stopped growing. You created a civilization based on hierarchy and control. But evolution doesn't stop just because you're comfortable. The Karathi elder leaned forward. Are you saying we are obsolete? Not obsolete, Dr. So Young replied kindly. Just paused. You stopped evolving when you decided you were already perfect. Humanity never stopped changing, growing, becoming something new. Admiral Sujin's voice joined the conversation from her ship. We're not here to replace you. We're here to offer you a choice. You can continue following the old patterns, trying to maintain control through fear and hierarchy, or you can join us in discovering what comes next. And if we refuse? Chancellor Vorth asked. Then you stay exactly where you are, Dr. So Young replied. Safe in your familiar systems, following your comfortable routines, while the universe moves on without you. The silence that followed was different from the earlier panic. This was the silence of beings forced to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and their place in the cosmos. Finally, the Karathi elder spoke. What do you propose? Dr. So Young smiled. We propose to dissolve the Galactic Council. It has served its purpose, but that purpose is now obsolete. In its place, we offer the Terran Alliance, a partnership of species dedicated to growth, discovery, and mutual support. Under human leadership? Asked a suspicious Zephyrian. Under the leadership of whoever has the best ideas, Dr. So Young corrected. Humans will guide initially because we currently understand the new paradigm better. But leadership will be earned through contribution, not inherited through assumption of superiority. Chancellor Vorth made one final attempt at defiance. And if we reject your alliance, if we choose to fight? Dr. So Young's expression became sad but determined. Then you will fight alone, in your own systems, with whatever ships we allow you to keep. The galaxy has moved beyond the age of conquest and control. We will not force you to join us, but we will not allow you to prevent others from growing. Around the chamber, alien delegates began to whisper among themselves. For the first time in galactic history, they were being offered a choice instead of being given orders. The humans who had been dismissed as primitive children were now offering to teach the teachers. The age of human dominance was beginning, but it would be unlike any dominance the galaxy had ever known. It would be based on inspiration rather than intimidation, on growth rather than control, on the revolutionary idea that even the greatest civilizations could still learn something new.